The journey up the waterfall of being. Just as the salmon cannot make it up the waterfall by swimming, so you can no longer progress on the spiritual river through your usual means. Like the salmon, you must learn how to fly, at least for brief intervals. You fly by releasing attachment to who you thought you were. This means saying goodbye to anything and everything that is inauthentic, which often includes people, possessions, beliefs, ideals, dreams, and things you didn't even realize you were grasping. You fly by letting go of the human limitations and allowing being to emerge through you. Being is the eternal, expressing as actions and relationships. On your spiritual journey, you face opportunities and convert experiences into learning. What you learn is that life works most effectively when your personal self is not in charge. This means connecting with your conscience, your higher self, the source of being. When you embrace new possibilities, you find that your greatest challenges provide the greatest potential for progress. In this progression, you turn learning into knowing and knowing into wisdom. 3 phases are recognizable as you learn to fly beyond your identification as a personal self. Phase 1, losing external trappings. In the first phase of your journey up the waterfall of being, your life begins to come apart, and what used to work for you no longer works. Maybe you have an intense breakthrough during a retreat. Maybe you are faced with a life-changing experience. There are many ways of being called to progress. In the process, you lose whatever you feel you possess, such as your job, your status, and your marriage. You lose the things that have provided you with your personal identity. You are getting tossed around and your life feels chaotic. You no longer know which way is up and which way is down. Your ties to teachers and teachings unravel or are cut. You feel frustrated and misunderstood. You feel alone and ungrounded. You experience depths of loneliness you never felt before. At times you may feel exhilarated by newfound freedom, but mostly you live in despair over loss until you collapse in complete exhaustion. Sometimes you feel nostalgic for the old ways, both those that were effective and those that were ineffective. You look for the familiar when all is unfamiliar. Your old identity whispers that returning to the status quo is the best course of action. You may be tempted to quit the journey because of the discomfort. Complaining and feeling sorry for yourself halts progress. There are only 2 choices for continuing as the human being you are: survive the journey and create a new life, or rot in the pool below. Despite all the challenges, deep down you know you need to keep moving forward. Phase 2, emotional turmoil. In the middle phase of the journey up the waterfall of being, nothing makes sense in your life. You see the risk ahead, but you do not yet see the reward. All the feelings you have repressed emerge with depth and intensity. Internal and external voices of blame, shame, guilt, and victimhood drown out other messages. Anything you built on a flimsy foundation comes crashing down. You feel the weight of the loss upon you. It is clear that your old life is gone and you cannot retrieve it. People who do not understand the spiritual journey judge you as a failure and abandon you. You experience confusion and lack of direction. Maybe you thought the spiritual journey was all about gentle sweetness. It's not, and this is your wake-up call. You begin to question everything. You lash out at convenient targets. You consider opting out of everything. You are losing your old life, and you are gaining a new one. You are transforming so you can experience rebirth. The only way through it is through it. Sugarcoating, minimizing, avoiding, and latching onto false hopes will only delay your progress. This is a time to release your fears, including your fear of flying. Phase 3, Dark night of the soul. The dark night of the soul is also known as the abyss or the void. You no longer care about anything anymore, and you do not care that you do not care. You have exhausted your resources. Basically, you are broken. Congratulations, you are closer to revealing the light you are. In this phase, you lose your beliefs. You stop believing in your beliefs. This means you are no longer standing on inherited concepts and interpretations passed down through culture and community. You are becoming an empty vessel. In this process, the darkness you carry emerges so you can learn from it. The key understanding you gain is equanimity. You learn that the dark and the light are equal, that the dark is not something to be dismissed, discounted, or avoided as if you could. You learn to see in the dark because even in darkness there is light. The light comes from within your own being. You develop night vision and make peace with darkness. You begin to look beyond the veil of your human personality and persona. When you feel you have completely let go of the old you, an underlying fundamental attachment presents itself. This is the linchpin, the core attachment on which you have built your life and your identity. Liberating the linchpin is also known as surrender. At this point, your authentic self, or your eternal self, has replaced your personal self as the majority influence over your life. This momentous milestone, which many have sought throughout human history, is also known as enlightenment. You are now on the path to pure joy. On this path, your beliefs are replaced with the knowledge and wisdom you have gained while traversing the spiritual river. You learn to coexist with polarities such as good, bad, right, wrong, true, false. You learn to accept life as it is instead of resisting it. You learn to love yourself as you are. The key realization in the waterfall of being. In the waterfall of being, you lose everything and enter nothing. When you face the nothing, you experience being, which is the eternal expressing as actions and relationships. From being, worlds emerge, and there is the possibility of everything. You discover the action of being that brings forth creations. That action is language, creation language, language that is generative, language that sparks and coordinates action, language that says, "Let there be light," and there is light. In the waterfall, you lose the attachments that keep you from progressing. This includes attachments to the story of your life so far. Your human accomplishments and all the facts of your biography are irrelevant in the falls, although they do make for an interesting tale of transformation. In the waterfall of being, you realize that you exist without things. You exist without houses and computers and shoes. You exist beyond your human structure. You realize you can drop your stories about having things and instead focus attention on actions and relationships. You realize you are not limited by what you perceive with your human senses. You are not limited to reactions you cannot control. You stop blaming others for your life. Learning to navigate the falls takes as long as it takes. You may fall back down into the pool repeatedly. You may feel like you have hit a boulder or are hurtling toward the mouth of a bear. The more baggage you carry, the more difficult the journey. The journey is a process of releasing. Above the waterfall, visiting the space above the falls. When you have had an immersive, blissful, magical experience, there's a good chance you are visiting the space above the waterfall of being. The experience is also known as being in the zone. In that space, you have amazing clarity and expansive awareness. You are in the flow of life, and everything unfolds with ease. you realize you are performing beyond your normal human construct. You experience the space above the waterfall of being in those moments when you expand into harmony with life, when you feel no need to change or control anything, when your mind is quiet and your heart is full, when you are joyful about letting the moment be as it is. The moment may be a peak experience, such as holding a newborn baby, enjoying the wonder of nature, facing death, being in love, or feeling transported by art. In that moment, you feel uncontained in your body, and you lose track of time and place. When you are a surprised visitor to the space of being, you are not aware of how you got there, how to stay, or how to return at will. Because the feeling is so fulfilling, you want to recreate the experience. You listen to the same piece of music or attend the same workshop again. You hike the same trail or try to remember what it felt like to be in love. The spiritual journey involves graduating from visitor status. It involves learning to stabilize above the falls without being pulled up, entranced, or ensnared by rituals, scenery, or someone else's energy. It involves consciously connecting with being, regardless of external conditions, so that you live permanently above the waterfall of being. Living above the falls, a quiet place. When you consciously make it up the waterfall of being, you have overcome many challenges. You have put in the work so that you are no longer a visitor. Take time to refresh your energy so you can learn new ways of being. For example, you will learn how to avoid being hooked and ensnared by your old life. An experienced guide can help you reflect, adjust, and avoid the common pitfalls. Above the falls, whole new vistas open up, and you feel a sense of joy and fulfillment. New ways of being. In this parable, the further below the falls you are, the more your personal self is in charge of your life. Your personal self is ruled by your human senses and is only aware of living in this world where things appear and disappear. The further you progress beyond the falls, the more you allow being to unfold and emerge through you. Being is the joy of existence and the awareness of oneness. Below the falls, you are motivated by your wants, needs, emotions, and moods. You are driven by your beliefs and your desire for others to believe as you do. You react to life to protect yourself and to avoid being further wounded. Above the falls, you are not attached to stories about being a victim or being unworthy. The result is you allow life to unfold organically. You no longer struggle to hide from, defend, impose, or fight for human limitations. Instead, your actions proceed from your awareness of health, wholeness, joy, clarity, grace, and the availability of resources, which results in harmony. The key activity that allows you to live above the waterfall of being is honesty. Being honest with yourself about who you are and your relationship with being. Your attention is no longer on your individual self. Instead, it is on the field of operation, which is the space where you exist in relationships and are open to possibilities. Living above the waterfall of being is often referred to as enlightenment. You can use the term in-beingment to emphasize consciously allowing being to operate through you. You stop focusing on your individual limitations and connect with oneness. In your actions and relationships, people see that you address concerns and produce results that are considered valuable. After getting acclimated, you either stay near the waterfall where you assist other travelers, or you continue the journey. When you continue, you discover that the current in this section of the river is not as difficult as it was below the falls, although it does present its own challenges. Now, however, you have developed the strength and the understanding to navigate effectively. Even though You have progressed in consciousness. You must still learn and exercise discernment to avoid pride and other pitfalls. Oneness in action. When you discard ineffective patterns and habits, you enter your new life. Most importantly, to live above the waterfall of being, you transcend the duality that is a fundamental characteristic of this universe. You transcend the true, false, right, wrong, good, bad conversations that people have below the falls. These conversations dissolve in oneness as you progress. In other words, personal stories about what is right and wrong and good and bad are irrelevant beyond our individual notions. You realize that everyone is experiencing their own relative reality and that this is not a problem to be solved. With your insightful perspective, you perceive wholeness and include polarities as well as the space in between. Above the falls, instead of focusing on having truth, you focus on effective action. Everything is energy, and you direct energy to promote well-being. You direct energy towards being who you came to be, to supporting existence, and to progressing in consciousness. You focus on bringing light to darkness. Instead of operating as a limited human being, you begin operating as a divine being experiencing this universe of appearances. As you become aware of the infinite and eternal, you release attachment to gods and religions that are projections of human personalities. This includes gods who have value judgments about who is worthy and who is unworthy. You realize that oneness diversifies into being, creating the myriad of expressions we see, such as you, me, worlds, galaxies, plants, animals, and people all over the planet. You realize that oneness, source, eternal consciousness is unlimited and unbounded. It just is forever, without boundaries. You realize that you are responsible for your actions, which include your thoughts and your conversations. You learn that language is generative, that we create with language, and you begin choosing conversations with care and consciousness. This includes conversations with yourself. You learn to develop your conscience and live by spiritual laws or laws of being. You learn to focus on universal principles instead of getting enthralled by the personalities of teachers and leaders. You begin operating as the eternal, expressing as actions and relationships. The more you progress, the more responsible you become. You are responsible for living in integrity with love and being beyond the waterfall of being. 4 distinct levels are discernible beyond the waterfall of being. Understanding progression is useful because what is effective in one space may be ineffective in another. When your life is in order and then you experience disorder, you may have advanced to the next space without realizing it. You may be operating at a new level without being aware that you are. Similarly, a person can operate very effectively in one aspect of life and not very successfully in other areas. For example, someone who is considered a virtuoso or a most valuable player may not make a great teacher or coach. Knowing where you are on the spiritual river is helpful for understanding yourself and your relationship to life. Successfully navigating the space above the falls requires focusing attention, listening to conscience, and learning how to operate with laws of being. Laws of being are the principles for how existence expresses and relates in this universe. These spiritual principles are found in wisdom that is common across time and traditions.